Hey, what's up guys, Subservice here, and today we're going to be talking about Titan Army's P2510S, the world's first 1440p 24-inch 240Hz refresh rate display. Yes, AOC and KTC have different variants of this exact same monitor, but they neither of them reach up to 240 Hz. I believe 180 Hz is the fastest of either of those other monitors. So to my knowledge, there's only 3 of these type of monitors in existence, and this with the 240 Hz makes it like ideally the best for what it's targeting, which is competitive gamers. I have played Doom, Marvel Rivals, Overwatch, Fantasy Life, Cyberpunk, a lot of these different games, even Cuphead on this display, and like I was actually very much impressed. I also want to say thank you to Titan Army for even sending me out this unit to review. When they emailed me, the gears started rolling in my head immediately. 1440p, 24-inch, that's a ridiculously high PPI for resolution. And my God, this display is very impressive, especially for the $259 price point that it is. Makes it like perfect for competitive gamers or people that are on a budget. And it's just like, yeah, it's gonna be kind of hard pressed if you're just like strictly a competitive gamer and you know the most color accurate is not the most important to you, or the brightest display and different stuff like that. And it has an excellent response time and different stuff like that. It's a very impressive display. So regardless, in this video I'm going to be talking about the PPI in comparison to other displays, the colors, what I've experienced with the HDR, and then also just the different type of games that I've tried and what I have found over the past week or whatever, my findings after testing this monitor. Regardless, thank you again to Titan Army for sending me this monitor to review. And with saying that, I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let's hop right in. Okay, so first thing, like I said, I wanted to highlight was the high PPI for the resolution and size of the monitor. First and foremost, I'm going to be throwing around a lot of numbers, but I just want to say all this so you guys can get an equivalent of like how sharp this display is and why it's so impressive. So PPI stands for pixels per inch. When you're playing on a monitor, especially one where you're going to be like basically slanted right in front of it, looking at everything that's happening over the screen, you want a sharp PPI because, you know, when you're playing like competitive games, let's say, Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, I feel like even MOBAs like League of Legends and just different stuff like that, being able to see the silhouettes of like the characters and different shrubbery and all the different stuff is very much important, because let's say you're a sniper, you're far away, you want to be able to see this target, this is where your head is exactly, and different stuff like that. And for reference, PPI on a 4K monitor of this size, which doesn't exist yet anyway, would be about 180. For a 27-inch 4K monitor like the PG2070 UCDM, it is 160, which until I did this video I didn't know it was that high, and now I see why a lot of people want the PG2070 UCDM over the 32 UCDM. For reference, the 32 UCDM has a PPI of I believe 138. My LG GX9 has a PPI of about 125, which you start to see what I'm saying. Yes, it's a 45-inch display, but this monitor has 3 less PPI than my 2K ultra wide 4K display. And obviously I'm going to be sitting a little further back from my LG GX9 than this Titan Army display, but the gears start to shift in your head and you start to see what I'm talking about. When you're playing right up in front of this display, especially with it being 1440p, which is just mind-boggling to think, it is sharper than any 1440p display that I've ever seen. And again, the price point is nuts. You are getting this for $259. Now, I just have to make it explicitly clear, as I said in the beginning of the video, this is not a top-of-the-line display. The color accuracy, I believe, which awesome of Titan Army, they send a color calibration sheet, which I'm going to show in the B-roll or whatever, but the average color accuracy of this monitor is 73%, which is basically just making it for HDR content to be able to use for HDR content. Yes, the monitor does support HDR, but again, it's nothing like super bright. I believe the peak nits is around like 300, 400 or whatever. To be honest, when you're super up close in the face of it, like this monitor, it is plenty bright. And that might be crazy to say, especially with the whole thing of like everybody getting upset right now that monitors aren't bright enough and different stuff like that. I definitely understand that. I would love for them to get to the equivalent of TVs and different stuff like that. But again, this is not a top of the line display. Don't go expecting to buy this display and get the absolute best of the best, because that's not what you're purchasing. Well, technically, You kind of are, because like you purchasing the smallest monitor with a ridiculously high resolution and different stuff like that, but obviously there's going to be caveats and stuff that come with it. But I have played games like Cyberpunk, Marvel Rivals, Overwatch, Doom, even Fantasy Life and like Cuphead and different stuff like that, and I have found that this monitor looks like extra duper duper sharp when it plays all those games, and I had no problem like trying to pinpoint out targets and different stuff like that, which I had found that previously when I had like 1080p monitors, and I think a couple years ago I even had the world's first 1080p 360Hz monitor, which I loved. But like as I've gone up and higher with resolutions and different stuff like that on monitors and different stuff like that, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say different stuff like that, but as I've gone higher with resolutions and monitors over the years, before it was like I had a 1080p monitor, I was perfectly happy with that. I got 1440p and I was like, I will never get 1080p again. But then again, a 1080p 360Hz monitor came out, and like I'm just so excited that like the existence of monitors at specific refresh rates and specific sizes have been able to kind of find like almost loopholes to be able to get like a sharper image than whatever's deemed possibly before. Like a 27-inch 1440p monitor looks sharp, but it's not going to look as sharp as a 24-inch display. And you start to see why this monitor is as good as it is for the price that you're getting. So what I want to talk about before we get to the nitty-gritty of like how was gaming on this display and go in more depth with that, I want to talk about the Subservice menu. Now this is a gaming monitor, and for the budget of it, of how much it costs, I really wasn't expecting that much. But I was actually surprised how many different stuff they allow you to tinker with the monitor. So first and foremost, it has different modes: FPS, MOBA, racing, I think even a reading mode, which is crazy on a gaming monitor. But basically that just changes with the volume of like red, green, blue, and how bright and stuff the monitor gets, which is pretty cool and different stuff like that. I had found the FPS mode, which is what I would ideally use for FPS gaming, like Marvel Rivals, which is not FPS, but a shooter. And then also like Overwatch was a little oversaturated, so I just kept it in the standard mode. That was perfectly fine with me. I like to find the balance of color balance, and obviously if I tinker with it a little bit more, I could probably find an easier balance, but right out of the box, I feel like the standard mode is the most ideal. What is probably the most important thing about this display, and I cannot emphasize it enough, is the dynamic OD is what I believe the setting is called. If it's not, I'll put a little text thing at the bottom of the screen. Set the level of that to level 2. Out of the box at level 0, the monitor has a response time of 9 milliseconds, which is very high. At level 1, I believe it's around 6 or 5. At level 2, it is at 4 milliseconds, and yes, you can get it lower with level 3 or the super overdrive setting, level 4, I don't know. But that, at level 3 and then 4 equivalent, it introduces artifacting and ghosting, which nobody wants. The monitor has like quite a bit of settings. It has like a dynamic contrast booster. It has a blue light assist or blue light limiter. It also has, I don't know the dynamic contrast. It's not a booster. Basically, I forgot the setting exactly what it's called, but basically it, depending on the content that's displayed on the screen, it will raise and lower the contrast on the fly dynamically. As I said, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I've tinkered with and like eye care and just different stuff like that. It's really cool for how much the monitor costs. I was very much surprised with how many different options and stuff it came with. So with saying that, let's get to the nitty gritty of how gaming was on this display. Okay, so first and foremost, obviously the first things that I tried on this monitor were Marvel Rivals and Overwatch. Those are my go-to shooters games. I love the hero shooter genre and different stuff like that. And after playing those games with the dynamic OD set at level 2, I was actually left very much impressed. It was very easy to, see out targets. I was very impressed by the picture quality of the display itself and stuff like that as well. And yes, it is an IPS monitor, so it comes with IPS glow. You look at the not right off angle of it, there's like a glowing hue around the whole display and different stuff like that. But if you're like basically looking down the barrel, sorry, I'm about to say barrel of the gun, but barrel of the monitor, you're going to have a very ideal performance. And then also, I know a lot of people are worried about burning and different stuff like that, so you don't have to worry about that when it comes to an IPS display and different stuff like that. But picking out silhouettes of targets, shrubbery, environments, and different stuff like that was just very easy to do. Text quality is very good. It's not the absolute best I've ever seen, but it is very much impressive regardless of that. I'd also try both Doom Eternal and Doom Dark Ages. HDR in Dark Ages, I believe, is borked a little right now, but I did also try out Cyberpunk, which is basically like you know, the graphical landmark of like gaming in general right now when it comes to like ray traced lighting and reflections, all different stuff like that. And I just have to emphasize again, $259 price point. It does support HDR. It does look very impressive. The gameplay that you guys are seeing throughout the video is, yes, going to be with path tracing and everything enabled and different stuff like that. But you can just see that 122 PPI come into play with just how sharp the display looks. And it's crazy because I've been mostly playing on 1440p, 4K displays over the past like couple, I guess, months, whatever. No, months, because I had the G9 OLED prior to that. But I was very much impressed by just the picture quality, the image, and then also like just how good everything looks. It's not the brightest display I've ever seen. It's not the most color accurate, especially with it being a 783 and different stuff like that. But I was very much impressed. And just for like, you know, sake of like testing and different stuff like that, I also tried Cuphead out, which just looks impeccable. You know, the art style and every different stuff like that is important. But even games like that, which are, I guess, considered like platformers or whatever, like boss things and different stuff like that, I had fun with. So like, legitimately, if you're looking for a budget monitor or whatever that's not too big, because also, you know, real estate of how large a display is also very important, and you want something that's going to give you like the competitive advantage, especially with it being 1440p, 240 hertz in today's landscape of GPUs and stuff like that, that's not too hard to push. Definitely not as hard as a 4K display. As somebody that, like, you know, ideally is kind of like OLED only, 4K only, and I emphasize that again and again throughout my videos of late, I left away very much impressed with the Titan Army P2510S. I thought I would be impressed just off of the sheer 1440p 24-inch, you know, display and different stuff like that, but it being 240 hertz, it costing the price that it does, even though it's not the absolute best display I've ever seen, for the price point, is very much impressive. And if you're on a budget and you want a nice competitive gaming monitor that can, you know, also be pretty darn good in like even games that aren't really competitive, I $259, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to recommend a lot else. That again, yeah, no, it really is. It's just very much impressed. I left very, very impressed. And I definitely, like, until I got this monitor, I did not understand why people got 24-inch displays. Like, over the past years, I think the smallest display I got was like a 27-inch monitor. But, like, I'm very much impressed. Now, one last thing before I hop out of this video, I do have to talk about the quality of, like, the stand and the actual, like, building of the monitor. When I said that it was kind of, like, cheaper on the end, when obviously they can, like, you know, make it more solid, make it the same quality of, like, say the PG32 UCDM and different stuff like that, and I'm pretty sure this is plastic, that would add $100 or like $150 or $200 premium and different stuff like that. And they had to make specific caveats and cut corners, I guess if you want to say, in specific areas or whatever to reach the specific price point that they did. And I'm not upset, because like if I was somebody that was on like a budget and I don't want to spend too much money, all that different stuff wouldn't really be that important to me. But I have a message to Titan Army. Titan Army, you guys have something special here, okay? I think I don't know if you want to hop into that market, but legitimately you should make a OLED variant of this. You should make a variant that comes in a more quality stand. You should make a 4K model, like, or whatever. I don't know if that's something you want to do or whatever, but like This is an untapped market. There are so many resolutions and sizes of monitors and refresh rates and stuff that people have been begging for years. And I know that this resolution and this size monitor people have been asking for a long time. So appreciate it, love it. It's amazing. You basically have so many options and so many different criteria of like what you want to do. If that's not what you want to target, that's whatever. But regardless, very great monitor. I was very much impressed. Thank you again to Titan Army. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Saying that, I hope you guys have a great day.